Hi everyone, this is Giacomo Vaccari, and this is the second out of 3 videos showing you some parts of how I reverse engineered Doom 2016 into Unreal Engine. I made this in blueprints. I do want to make it in C++ someday, but right now it's not the time. So anyway, let's get into it. So I already showed you how the player works mostly, and I'm sure I'm gonna forget some details, but let's go into the basics of how the weapons work. So basically you have all the normal weapons in Doom, and you start without mods, but the mods are available. So I reverse engineered them, and you know, they work correctly, and yeah. So anyway, I'll show you a little bit about the code. I won't go into too much detail. If you're looking at this website, chances are that, or this page, chances are that you have the password for the code, and you're probably looking at it to consider a collaboration or something like that. So you probably will take a look at the code in more detail that I will go over here. Anyway, extremely simple code. You know, I like to keep things very modular. Use a lot of inheritance when needed, and so basically this is the weapon base, and as you can see, not so many variables, not so many functions, very simple, all very modular. So basically this is the weapon base, and from that we inherit all the actual weapons. So for example, the shotgun is literally just a data blueprint. There's no need to do anything special about it. There is that need in some of the weapons. So for example, particularly the Gauss Cannon has a lot of you know, its own workings. Well, relatively speaking, a lot, but yeah, because well, it just has a lot of edge cases, but most of the weapons will just need the weapon base. So basically the weapon appears from the bottom, comes up, it tells the player that it's ready, charges, like loads up the mod, and all, like picks up all the data and all that stuff that we're gonna need. Particularly important that when it comes up, it lets the player know, well, or the player controller, depending what you're using, but in this case it's the player, that it's up, because if the key for firing is down, it needs to recognize that, so it fires as soon as it's ready, just as in Doom. Also, if the button is down, like the main fire button is down, and it's an automatic weapon, it needs to like reset the timers and all these things. So yeah, basically, you know, set up the fire modes, like auto versus single, stop firing, resetting auto shots. So for example, some of the weapons, let me show you here. So the heavy rifle has the first shot is exact, the first trace, but after that it gets variance. But it's important to know what the first shot is, so we will need to reset that when we need it. All of that is driven but by I haven't looked at this for a while, so probably here, yes. So we have all the weapon data here. Of course, we also have the mods for like the information we need, but it's all very configurable. So like we could just make the pistol automatic this easily, extremely simple. So like if you are working in a team, you want to keep things modular like this. So I always try to keep things ready. If I look at this code in 6 months, will I remember what's going on, or will I be able to read it easily? So anyway, yeah, we try to fire. If we can fire or not depends on several things. So for example, if we are animating the weapon in, it's switching in. Do we have ammo? Can we fire? Is for other things. You can check in the code, but it's like pretty simple. If we cannot fire, there is a chance that it's because we don't have ammo. So if that's the case, we will tell the UI we don't have ammo. So for example, it will not usually happen easily, because you know, so when you run out of ammo in a weapon, you saw this in the player, I believe, or it might be here, I'll see in a second, I haven't checked in a while. As soon as I shoot the last one, I'm gonna show the 0 and then change, and the changing with the mouse wheel will not let me go into the rocket again. I have to specifically press and then try to fire it, and then I'm not gonna get no ammo. That's how it's done in Doom, and that's how I replicated it. That's the purpose of this exercise anyway. So I didn't do anything by myself. I didn't invent anything here. It's just whatever Doom does, I do. So we have to decide if we have a mod. If we have a mod, maybe we need to shoot it here. Maybe the mod overrides the main fire. It can be several things, but we definitely reduce ammo. We block firing if, you know, like for whatever reason. So basically, like depending on like the delay between shots when an auto shoot or when you try to shoot more than once, like really quickly. Like if you try to do this but the wait is like 1 second or whatever, this could be done with a timer. I've done it with a timer in other projects, but you know, up to you really. Well, how many traces it has. So for example, obviously, like it's not gonna be the same to have a pistol than to have a shotgun. You can see the particles, they are fired exactly to where the traces go, so you can actually have a representation. I mean, if we could also just do this, just for fun. Yes, it takes a little bit to compile, but compared to C++, it's very nice. So as you can see, it's exactly the same thing. You literally don't see it because it's right in front of you. Small trick, obviously, if you are good at what you do already, you know that it comes from the camera and not from the actual weapon. Anyway, we do that number of traces that is in the data. We do the actual traces, boom, boom, boom. Obviously, you know, we get the data for how many degrees of variance we have, how long the distance is. You could change the damage based on the distance. You could just map it to some value. Well, I mean, obviously to the distance, you would map it and compare it to like the damage and all of that stuff. But that's beyond the scope of this test, or well, this experiment that I did. We do the damage for the enemies, you know, like feedback should be get weapon or weapon damage and damage, blah blah. We know we calculate for all the things. So for example, is the damage from the mod or is it from the normal weapon? The damage has a range because it has a variance, so it's not always exactly the same, just like in Doom. So we have to select that. You know, it helps with modularity basically to do it here instead of actually overriding every single time on the mod. Spawn particles and send damage to the enemies with like an interface, all that stuff. I mean, this is all pretty trivial, I guess, if you are like an experienced combat design person and gameplay programmer, but you know, it's been an interesting learning experience for me. We need to know that the shot has been fired for many things. Well, it's not used here, but it is used in the child blueprints. So things like you know, like we shoot the like a mod or whatever, and like we have to know that we need to start recharging the timeline or whatever, things like that. Similar for get validated mod. Sorry, for like after knowing the mod, it's been a normal shot fired. That's for the mode base. Some of the mods like override the main function of the main fire of the normal weapon. They just do it several times or like at different speeds or whatever. So we just gonna count that it's actually happened for whatever we're doing there. If we have no ammo, we have to change the weapon. So we're gonna check for the ammo again, etc., and we ask to change the weapon. I'll go into that in a second. And we show feedback, of course, like we play an animation, we play a sound, we do a camera shake, and we spawn a muzzle particle and all of that. So all of that is actually you know, like modular here for the children. So it's much easier to do this, just changing the class defaults or class settings to than actually overriding every variable by hand or like whatever it is that you could have been doing. Anyway, yeah, so weapon of the normal shot fired, yeah, that's for the mod. Right, weapon sorry, there's some kids screaming downstairs. They're playing Fortnite, so they're very excited, I guess. Anyway, so that's the shooting, which is obviously the most complex and interesting part. We also can change the weapon. We give it a little bit of duration actually, and that's for what you saw before. So I actually want you, or well, like the Doom design, the original Doom designers, John Romero, John Carmack, etc., wanted you to see the 0 after you shoot the last one, so they give you a little bit of time. I actually met John Romero last week, So it was awesome to meet him after I had finished this. So it was quite interesting to tell him that I've stolen all his tricks. Anyway, so the secondary fire, this event actually never happens. I don't know why I didn't delete this. So yeah, we need to save these variables for several things, mostly in the mods. So we need to actually know if the secondary fire is pressed or not. You could have done that, let's say with like a key is pressed kind of thing. Okay, I don't get it here. Oh, key is down, I believe. Yeah, you could also do this quite easily, you know, but for this occasion I decided to do this way. But you could totally, of course, have like some input action events setting up this, or like you could read it later when you need it, but no, I just did it this way this time. It was faster. So we get the validate the mod. Do we have a mod on or not? Like, of course we don't want errors in our code, even though we don't have any mods set up. Hopefully it won't crash. That would suck. It's gonna crash. No. Okay, yeah, it's because it has a lot of children. So I don't have a mod installed, but I still don't get any errors. So that's why we do it. We need this. We're gonna do double checking for some things later when we force a normal shot from the secondary fire. So you know, this is something that this is a variable that we will need to check later. The same we did in the player. We also save a variable just in case that we need to do like second double checks for some stuff. But yeah, you can see that in the code. And basically that's about it. I mean, I believe that the most interesting thing was actually in the player when you check the ammo needed for like the next class, but I guess I spoke about that already. And yeah, basically the weapon itself is actually pretty simple. Obviously, like the animations, I just did them with made them with like some timelines, which is obviously not ideal. This should be done with animations, but you know, I'm not an animator. I just needed to get this out with correct code and correct behaviors, and this is kind of what you want from like your combat designer and gameplay programmer, is to get it right gameplay wise, and then we can make it pretty. Well, technically we should be making it pretty at the same time, but you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah, set weapon mod, you know, like do we have it available, all these things, you know. Obviously like reduce ammo, which it's nothing special, but it's interesting that of course depending if you have a mod installed or not, the ammo reduction might be different, which is pretty cool. So you have the ammo, the main ammo fire consumption. So for example, if you shoot like the gauss cannon without a mod, that will spend 15, as you can see, 15 cells. But if we do the gauss cannon with the siege mod fully, it will be 30. So we actually need to account for that. We don't want to do this over and over and over, like once in the mod, once in the weapon. That's inefficient. So we just check it here and select depending on if we actually have the mouse down and things like that. That's one of the tests that we need to do. We reduce the ammo. Of course, we don't actually let you shoot if you don't have enough ammo. I believe we check that. I check it somewhere. Check ammo. Yes, of course. That's why you should write descriptive names. So we need to know if we do have enough of that ammo type from that weapon to be able to even fire. So of course, if that's not the case, we know that we don't have ammo, and we immediately switch to another weapon. If we have -1, which is only the pistol, or if you have like the rune Richer get rich, rich get richer, then you could get everything -1, and you would just save the old data in another structure, and then take it back once that's gone. Otherwise, at 0 we have no ammo, and at default we have ammo. So whatever is over 1, basically. Yeah, so basically there's of course lots more things in here, obviously, but you know, it's all very clean, it's all very simple to understand. So if you're gonna look at this code yourself, it should be self-explanatory. You can just most likely just come here and start reading and know what's happening at all times. Yeah, so thank you for watching. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of details, but also the point of this video is just to go a little bit over it and not to explain every detail. Just before I go, let's check if I'm forgetting any important points. Proper weapon ignore. Yeah, of course, auto shooting. I mean, that's a granted. But for example, something that surprised me is that the shotgun has auto fire in Doom. I did not know that. Also, for example, interesting, if you change, if you should keep the mouse down and you change weapons, as soon as they come up, they fired, which is actually quite useful in Doom because you can do Q. So for example, you could do 6 and 7, which would be like a double shotgun, gauss cannon, double shotgun, cannon, double shotgun, cannon. That's the highest DPS in the game. Whoop, an error. Huh, interesting. Well, that's fine. I'll fix it later. So you can't test everything, I guess. So game instance. Yeah, the trace variance on the first shot. As you could see, I don't use any tick events. Super cheap. Everything is super cheap. So much cheaper than making a third-person shooter. That's for sure. You don't have to take care of the camera at all. So that helps. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't know if I talked about this in the player, but so if you were to, let's imagine that you're gonna shoot a double barrel shotgun to the enemy, it would do lots of traces, so you would basically not see the enemy at all. You would just see numbers. But there's a way to solve that and accumulate all the damages together. As you can see, the double shotgun does the correct behavior, but you can also cancel the animation and go back and go faster. So so yeah, there's a trick to do that. That's not the purpose of this video right now. What's going on with the double shotgun? This is strange. Secondary fire. Of course. Apologies, I dropped my microphone. Validated mod. Let's get this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's. Well, I have to do it later because I'm guessing it's on the weapon base. Get weapon, and then probably not because it's a macro. Yeah, it's a macro. So okay, I have to turn it into a function. Anyway, so yeah, that was an error. Smooth transition between normal shooting and mod shooting. Okay, yeah, that's interesting for sure. So let's say we have the heavy rifle sniper. We're shooting normally, then we go into scope mode and it keeps firing properly. I release and it keeps firing normal fire. As you can see, the scope will turn back to its original place, which I love when I discovered that. So that's quite interesting, little trick there. And yeah, that's about it. You can just check the code again, and you know, next video will be mods, which are much more complex because they have more edge cases. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something watching the code, or you find it interesting at the least. And thank you very much for watching. Take care.